Good morning, children. This is Venkatachalam, your bioparty teacher. Today we are going to discuss a chapter ecosystem. There are 5 questions. Number 1 is biogeochemical cycle. In biogeochemical cycle, we have discussed carbon cycle, phosphorus cycle, and nitrogen cycle. Then food chain, food web. Then finally, we are going to discuss energy flow and the law of thermodynamic and 10% law. Okay, children. First one, the circulation of nutrients within an ecosystem or biosphere is known as biogeochemical cycle. The entire part of earth is including a biotic and abiotic components in constituting the biosphere. The plants can photosynthesize simple compounds like carbohydrate by using carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and obtained from the carbon dioxide and water. However, the synthesis of more complex material like a protein, carbohydrate, they are need a supply additional of essential of nutrients. Some nutrients are require in a large amount like nitrogen and phosphorus, but some others are very needed trace amounts like zinc, molybdenum, copper, etc. These nutrients flow from abiotic to biotic compounds and back to the non-living component in a more or less cyclic manner and are referred to as a nutrient cycling. It is also called as a cycling material. These nutrient cycles are also known as biogeochemical cycle. In term, bio means living organism and geo means rock, air and water. The nutrient cycle is 2 types. One is gaseous cycle, another one is sedimentary cycle. The gaseous cycle means the reservoir of gaseous type of nutrient cycle is generally located in an atmosphere or hydrosphere. Example, carbon cycle. Second one, the sedimentary cycle. The reservoir exists in a earth crust. Example, sulfur cycle. The first one is carbon cycle. The circulation of carbon between organism and environment is known as carbon cycle. Otherwise, the exchange of carbon element between the living and non-living world, it is called carbon cycle. The carbon is the most essential constituent of all major organic compounds of protoplasm, such as the carbohydrate, protein, fat, and nucleic acid. You know that what are the source of carbon? It is maximum abiotic compound, air, rock, like that. The air is a carbon dioxide of air is taken by the plants through the stomata and used during the photosynthesis. Second one, rock. The rock in that earth crust has a carbonates. The next one is fossil fuel like a coal, petroleum, etc. It yields the carbon dioxide on burning. The carbon dioxide is the main source of carbon. In carbon cycle, it can be described in following heading. The fixation of carbon dioxide into the living world. Most of the carbon dioxide is entered in the living world through a photosynthesis process. The amount of carbon fixed by a plant during photosynthesis in year 7 into 10 power of 13 kg per year. These carbon compounds are consumed by herbivores which feed on the plants. The carnivores consume the herbivores. The second one, the return of carbon dioxide from living world into the atmosphere. Here some ways carbon dioxide are returned to the atmosphere. First one, respiration. The plants, animals and other microorganisms release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere during photosynthesis. Second one, the bacterial decay. The dead plants and animals are decomposed by the bacteria and fungi and release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Third one, the fuel composition The carbon compound in the form of coal, mineral oil, natural gases and limestone are released in the atmosphere when the fuel is burnt. The last one, the weathering of limestone and also release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The ocean occupies 70% of Earth's surface and containing 30 to 40 times of carbon dioxide in the form of carbonates and bicarbonate as compared to the biosphere. The carbon dioxide of ocean is in equilibrium with air. Whenever the equilibrium is disturbed, that the carbon dioxide begin to escape from the oceans into atmosphere or vice by diffusion. The next one is oxygen cycle. This cycle involves utilization of atmospheric oxygen by living organism and on other hand the liberation of oxygen by the plants into atmosphere, so that a total amount of oxygen remain is unchanged. The oxygen cycle can be described in two ways. Number one is utilization of oxygen. The oxygen exists in atmosphere in the form of molecular oxygen O2 and the compound such as water and carbon dioxide. The oxygen has a constituent of 46.6% of air gases. This oxygen can be utilized in two ways. This oxygen is required for respiration, enter the body and directly from the atmosphere, and it is used for oxidation of food and energy is released. The oxygen is entered into the body of plants during the photosynthesis in the form of carbon dioxide and water and liberation of oxygen into the atmosphere. The plants liberate the oxygen and producing during the photosynthesis. If write the formula 6 carbon dioxide plus 12 H2O in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll and release glucose or carbohydrate C6H12O6 the water and carbon dioxide. Living organism release carbon dioxide into atmosphere and oxygen is a part of carbon dioxide. The next cycle is water cycle. It involves the consumption of the natural water either by living organism and its evaporation into the atmosphere and then return of this water into the nature. This is the two type of water cycle. One is global water cycle, another one is a smaller water cycle. The global water cycle means the living world is not involved in this cycle. The living world is not involved. The water is evaporated from the ocean, sea, river and lakes, which are the part of hydrosphere. The water vapor and get cooled and condense to form a clouds, water or snow. The water from clouds come down to the earth as a rain or snow. It is called precipitation. So the precipitation brings back the water to the earth's surface. It may be trapped directly into the sea or land, then flow into the oceans. The rate of precipitation of the world is 4.46 into 10 power of 22. The amount of water vapor in the atmosphere are 0.13 into 10 power of 23 gm. So the large amount of water remains underground and in the form of snow in the polar regions and on the mountain peaks above the snow line. The next one is smaller water cycle. It consists of the entrance of water from the environment into the living world and its return. The plants are absorb water from the soil. The land animals take the water either directly from freshwater sources or in the form of food. Some organisms retain some amount of water in their body and rest of the water is passed out from their body. The aquatic animals take the water from surrounding. Children, now you understand the water cycle is a complex and involve the state changes in the water as well as the physical movement of water through between the ecosystem. So the hydrosphere is a large and diverse. The water is present in a liquid on the earth's surface and under the ground as a ice in polar caps, glaciers and water vapor in the atmosphere. The water molecule typically enter the atmosphere as vapor as they leave from the body of water during the evaporation and transpirations. So the vapor may be transferred through the atmosphere. As the vapor cool the water and the water condenses into droplets that form a clouds and the result in the precipitation like a rain or snow. The next nutrient cycle is phosphorus. The phosphorus is not abundant in biosphere, but it is a bulk quantity in rock deposits. The phosphorus is found in DNA, RNA, ATP, NADP and other phospholipid molecules of all living organisms. The phosphorus is released from the withering rocks and also it is absorbed from the plants through the roots. The phosphorus is normally move up the food chain as the animal eat producer. The decomposers obtain the phosphorus as a feed on the dead remains. So the phosphorus is released as the waste. The bulk quantity of phosphorus is present in the rock deposit, marine sediments, and it is also released from the deposit of weathering. After that, it circulates in the lithosphere as well as hydrosphere. The producer absorbs the phosphorus in the form of phosphate ion. Then it is transferred to the each tropical level of the food chain through the food. Again, the death of the organism and degradation by the action of the decomposer, the phosphorus is released back into the lithosphere and hydrosphere to maintain a phosphorus cycle. Children, the next one is energy flow. The transfer of energy in an ecosystem between the tropical level can be termed as an energy flow. It is a key function in an ecosystem. A part of energy is obtained from a sun. It is a producer. It is transferred to the consumer and the decomposer through each tropic level, while some of the amount of energy is dissipated in the form of heat. So the energy flow is always unidirectional in an ecosystem. The storage and loss of energy in an ecosystem is based on the two basic of law of thermodynamics. The first law, it states that the energy can be transmitted from one system to another in a various form. The energy cannot be destroyed or created, but it can be transformed from one form to another. The quantity of energy is present in a universe is always constant. Second law of thermodynamics. The energy transmission results in a reduction of free energy of a system. Usually, the energy transmission cannot be in 100% efficient, as the energy is transformed from one organism to another in the form of food. A portion of is stored. The energy in living tissue, whereas a large part of energy is dissipated as a heat through the respiration. The transfer of energy is an irreversible natural process. Example, 10% law. The 10% law was proposed by Lindemann in 1942. It states that during the transfer of food energy from one tropic level to other, only about 10% is stored at every level, and the rest of them 90% lost in the respiration, the decomposition and in the form of heat. Hence the law is called 10% law. Example, 1,000 joule of solar energy trapped by a producer and 100 joule of energy is stored as a chemical energy through the photosynthesis. The remaining 900 joules would be lost in the environment. The next trophic level herbivores, which feed on the producers, get only 10 joule of energy and the remaining 90% of joule is lost in the environment. Likewise, the next tropic level carnivores which eat herbivores and store 1% of joule energy and the remaining 9 joule is dissipated. Finally, the carnivores are eaten by tertiary consumer which store only 0.1 joule energy and the remaining 0.9 joule is lost in the environment. The successive tropic level only 10% law is stored. Next one is food chain. The movement of energy from producer up to top carnivore in food chain. That is, any food chain, the energy flow from producer to primary consumer, then primary consumer to secondary consumer, then tertiary consumer. It shows a linear fashion or links. Generally, it is two types: grazing food chain, deciduous food chain. Then grazing food chain, the main source of energy for the grazing food chain is sun. It began with a first link producer, it is a plant. The second link in food chain is a primary consumer, it is a mouse. It gets the food from the producer. The third link in a food chain is a secondary consumer, it is a snake, which get the food from a primary consumer. The fourth link in a food chain is a tertiary consumer, eagle. It gets their food from a secondary consumer. Next one is deciduous food chain. It is food chain begin with a dead organic matter. It is a most important source of energy. A large amount of organic matter is derived from dead plants. This type of food chain is present in all ecosystems. The transfer of energy from a dead organic matter is transferred through a series of organisms called deciduous consumers, and the small carnivores and large carnivores with repeated eating being eaten repeatedly. This is called deciduous food chain. The next one is food web. The food web is an interlocking pattern of a number of food chain and form a web-like arrangement. It is called food web. It is a basic unit of ecosystem to maintain the stability in nature. It is called homeostasis.
Children, in the last one is significance of food web. The food web is constructed to describe the species interaction called direct interaction. It can be used to illustrate indirect interactions among the different species. It can be used to study bottom-up or top-down control of a community structure. It can be used to reveal the different pattern of energy transfer in a terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. Okay children, let's continue the remaining portion in next class. Bye.